Hey everybody, welcome to Point of View Playthrough. Today we are going to be talking a bit about the Dead by Daylight board game. We're going to go over the rules. They posted the rules book a few days ago, and they're going to be going live on the Kickstarter in a couple days. Okay, here, I just want to make sure everything's working properly. Okay, looking good. Okay. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Okay. I'm the occasional DBD streamer. Very occasional. I'm going to get into it a little more. And I haven't done it for a bit, but me and my friends, one of my friends, occasionally stream some board games. Kingdom Death Monster is the normal one that we do. Sorry, the cat was just clawing at my my wires. Trying to get him to stop there. So yeah, board game, occasional board game streamer, occasional Dead by Daylight streamer. These two are kind of a good combination for me, I think. I did take a very quick look at the rule book when it first got dropped. I didn't go through it in too much detail. I wanted to do kind of a one of these reaction read-through videos. So I have a basic idea of what the game, kind of how it runs. Not a lot of details, though. Let's get that back up here. Do that. Okay, so Dead by Daylight board game rulebook. Okay, so of course we have the introduction, the designer forward. I'm gonna skip that. If you want to read it, you can. Go do it on your own. Okay. Looks like they do have a video tutorial as well. That's nice. I like when they do that. Maybe we'll check that out. I'm not sure if it's live yet. I haven't even taken a look at that yet. Okay, so components. We have 7 survivor identity boards. Those are the players you can be. It looks like they have their perks printed on it, but I believe you can use other perks as well, kind of mix and match. You have the survivor minis. I think there's going to be more. There's a basic version and a special edition. I think the special edition is going to have something like almost double the survivors and killers. I think everything that is all original characters, nothing IP, because, well, for obvious reasons. Let's see. So 6 killers, 7 survivors, and I know there's going to be a lot more in the special edition. We have prop tiles, 44 of them, 10 objectives, 10 boldness, 12 survival, and altruism. Not sure exactly how those work. Breakable walls, so I'm guessing players can't go through those spaces until the killer breaks them down. 12 sacrifice progression tokens. So just like in the other game, you can hook people 4 times each, so 4 players. Hooked 4 times each, so that'll let you know how many times the players have been hooked. Generator tokens, so if it's the same as in the game, you're trying to get 5 generators completed, so it looks like there are going to be 5 progress tokens per generator, maybe, or maybe 4, something like that. Who knows? We'll see later. First player marker, the entity token. Interesting. Maybe that blocks things off, but only 1. Blood point tokens. Now, I believe blood points are more like a currency to spend in the game. I think you can see some blood points at the top of the perks here. And I believe that that is the cost for the blood points. So you earn them somehow, and you can spend them on your abilities, your perks. Then we have specialty tokens. It looks like bear traps for the trapper, madness tokens, 7 phantasm trap tokens. So that's probably the what's her name, the hag, and this one's the doctor. Oh, it says underneath. Skill check dice and a danger die. So I think the killer can probably put you in a state where you have to use a danger die instead of a regular skill check. Not sure what all of these symbols mean. It looks like there's 2 scratch marks there, then 5 down here, and then a skull. I'm assuming skull is fail. And wounded rings, so you put those rings on your survivor base when they're wounded. So like in the board game or the video game, you take 1 hit and you're wounded, you take another hit and you're knocked down. Double-sided game board, so we have the Macmillan Estate and the Auto Haven Wreckers. And I believe there's another one in the expanded version. 28 survivor perk cards and 24 killer perk cards, so a bunch of extra perks that you can mix and match and make your own builds, like in the video game. Killer perk card, same thing. Item tokens, or item cards. We'll see how those work a little later. We have movement, so there is sneaking, sprinting, crouching, vaulting, and waiting. The component breakdown. We have the survivor's info, or survivor's card. We have their survivor info about the character, turn reference, so this is just information about how the turn order goes. I like when that's readily available in board games, either on like a separate, card or something like that, or if they have them on the player card like this, that's really cool. Space for your item. So the blood point pool, this is where you put your earned blood points and your perks. So the abilities you'll use for survival. You have 3 perks. Perks have a blood point cost to use in the upper left and an effect at the bottom. So the killer is pretty much the same thing. Killer info up at the top. The turn reference, same thing as the other ones. Then we have their special power. Each killer has their own special power, so they play completely differently from each other. And then their perks as well. Okay, items. So we have the item, their name, their effect, and the number of copies of that item. Okay, that's cool. So if 3 people already have flashlights, you can't find one in a chest or something like that. We have the movement cards, so the name of it and the icon. So you can see on the board here, there's different icons. So the only way to get from here down to this area is through the vaulting card. And then you can go over this way, I assume, through sprint. Perks, here we go. Perks, we have up at the top left, there's the blood point cost. Each number of blood points needed. The number of blood points needed to be spent to use the perk. You can use each perk only once per round. We also have the name of the perk, the info, so the type of perk, whether it belongs to survivor or killer, or if it's available to any survivor or killer. Flavor text and the effect. All right, then we have the game board. So there's an area up here that shows the sacrifice progress, used by the killer to track how close they are to winning. When their track is full, they win. There are only 2 spots, or generator progress. Used by survivors to track how close they are to winning. When they have fixed 4 generators and 1 exit gate, they win. The room name. So each room will have a name up here. The room setup. So which tokens are in there. So this one has yellow, red, blue, and green. So we'll pop up here for a second. Yellow. Okay, there are different ones. Red, blue, and green. So that'll tell you what is going to be in each room. The skill check die faces are used for initial mini placement. Colored prop icons designate which types of props start in each room face down. Room spaces, so the area there is where you put your miniatures. The path, so the different paths you can take from space to space. Each path has an icon that keys to a movement card. Some paths start with breakable walls, which only killers can move through. They're indicated by a distressed border. All right, setup. Determine which player will be the killer. Give a survivor the first player marker. Sacrifice. The other players choose the game board, shuffle the props, and place them down into rooms. Each room indicates how many of each prop. Okay, starts in that room. In turn order, each survivor reveals one prop anywhere on the board. Place breakable walls on distressed borders, so the ones with the squiggly lines get covered by breakable walls. Each player gets a set of 4 movement cards. The killer also takes a wait card. Okay, so they don't have to move while the players do, it looks like. Some killers have extra components, like the traps, things like that. Each survivor gets 2 blood points, and the killer gets 4. Shuffle and place the item cards into a pile. Keep other tokens nearby if they're needed. Each survivor and killer should roll a skill check die and place their figure on the matching space. It's normal. Okay, multiple survivors start in the same space, or that the survivors may start in the same place as the killer. Oh, that's interesting. So this is kind of what the game board will look like. You have the players, the killer, board here. They're all starting. They got 2 starting over here. One might. Oh, it looks like they're with the killer, the trapper there. Okay. Gameplay. Here's what's interesting. So, gameplay proceeds in rounds. All players plan their movement, then survivors act, followed by the killer. To win, survivors must prepare 4 generators, then open an exit gate before the killer gains 8 sacrifice progress. Okay, so 8 sacrifice progress in total. Each round contains 4 phases. Planning. All players will plan their movement. Survivors act in order. Each survival will take 1 turn. Then the killer takes a turn. Killers usually get 2 turns per round. Clean up. Prepare for the next round. So everybody selects what they're going to do. And then they take their actions in order. So you can't react to your opponent's decisions. Survivors each select and play 1 movement card face down. The killer selects and plays 2 movement cards face down in a row. When the survivors are allowed to communicate, while survivors are allowed to communicate with each other, secret communication is not allowed. Anything that is said at the table must be said out loud so that the killer and all survivors can hear. So no secret planning. Oh, that's probably good. Beginning with the survivor who holds the first player marker, going clockwise, each survivor takes a turn, starting with move. On the survivor's act, move. Reveal your movement card, then move along the matching path to any connecting space. Flip over a face-down prop while entering that space. If there's any left, the yellow vault paths are a one-way and can only move through. Okay, you can only vault the way the arrow is facing. Okay. If any other effect would make you move, you still flip over face down prop in the new room. So anytime you go to a new room, you flip one of those tokens over. If you reveal any card and you cannot move, then lose the opportunity to interact with that card. Jake reveals the blue sneak movement card, but there is no blue path, so he does not move and he loses a chance to interact. Okay, so you can only interact with things if you move. But you can stay where you are by playing a wrong card. You just give up doing anything that turn. Okay. So here, Meg reveals a green sprint movement card. And moves along the green path. She enters in your room and reveals the objective prop by flipping it over. It's a generator. Now Meg can interact with the generator and to aid in the survivor's escape. Okay, so looks like when you land on a space, you always get to flip over one token. Interact. You choose a revealed prop or any other survivor in your space to interact with. Survivors can escape by interacting with generators, all of which are found in objective category. See survivor interactions on page 12. Or the survivor reference for all of the different ways a survivor can interact with props and players. A survivor may choose not to interact with a prop if they wish. So Meg chooses to interact with the generator. She rolls a 2. It's a success, so she adds 1 progress to the generator. Okay, so I'm wondering if the 5 scratch spot is a double success or something like that, like a critical success. Let's see here. Okay, so that was the generators. So Dwight chooses to interact with a revealed crow, which allows him to move and interact again. Interesting. Just a second here. Okay. Dwight chooses to interact with so the crow. He plays a red movement card and moves along the red crouch path. He then reveals a face down survival prop. So he moved this way, revealed the prop, which was a chest. So I assume he can then open that to get an item. So pick up all your movement cards to signal the end of your turn. Once the survivor has taken a turn, all survivors have taken their turn. The killer takes their turn. The killer's act. The killer takes a turn, move and interact with each of their 2 cards. They will do this for the left card first and the right card. So you have to place them in the order you want to. Interesting. Move. You reveal your movement card, then then move along the matching path to any connecting space. Flip over a face down prop when entering the space if there's any left. The yellow vault paths are one way, same thing. So even the killer reveals things. So okay, so those are things more like hooks and stuff like that, I think. If you reveal any card other than weight, you cannot. If you reveal any card other than weight, you cannot move. And you cannot move, then you lose your opportunity to interact with the card. So wait, what? If you reveal any card other than weight and you cannot move, then you lose your opportunity to interact with that card. Okay, so if you play a sprint card, but there's no sprint thing, then just like the players. So this here, the nurse revealed a green sprint card and moves along to the green path. As she enters, she reveals the boldness prop by flipping it over. So certain props or tokens are for killers and some are for the survivors. So choose a revealed prop or other survivor or another survivor. Could be or a survivor in your space because you're not. It sounds like you're a survivor in this. Choose a revealed prop or another survivor in your space. It should just be a survivor in your space. Killers advance their objective by interacting with a survivor in their space. It's called attacking. Killers may also use their kill power once per round instead of interacting. A killer may choose not to interact if they wish. Okay. Nurse decides to interact with Meg, inflicts a wound by placing a wound ring on her base. Now the nurse has resolved her movement. She would reveal her second card and move and interact again. Killer's bonus turn. Only at the end of your second turn you may spend 4 blood points to set a third movement card. Then take a third turn. No matter what, the killer may only take 1 bonus. So you can take a third turn if you have 4 blood points. Nice. And pick up all your cards to signify the end. Okay, an example of the killer's second turn and bonus turn. So the nurse, I assume it's following this one here. It did move. It hit Meg, I think it was. The nurse still has 1 more card, so she takes another turn. She reveals the red crouch movement card and moves along the red path. All the props are revealed, so she doesn't need to reveal anything. That's over here. So the nurse interacts with the generator to damage it and removes its progress. Nice, you can kick a gen. In response, Feng Min uses her alert perk to move out of the room, away from the nurse, in case she decides to come after her on a killer bonus turn. Okay. So nice. You can get perks to help you move away from the killer if they might be coming towards you. Nurse then damages the generator, removing all progress. The nurse cannot follow Feng, as she does not have a green sprint movement card because she already used it up here. So she decides to spend 4 blood points and take a killer bonus turn to move into another room and wound another survivor. So 1, the nurse takes her turn to move over. She kicks the generator and Feng moves. But she can't follow because of already using a green movement card. Okay. Removing all progress from... Okay, so... Wow. Kicking the generator is pretty strong in this. Finish round by completing the following steps in order. Sacrifice progression. For each survivor who is currently sacrificed, gain sacrifice progress by putting a progress marker... Okay. Next to an empty space of the progress track. If it reaches 8, the killer's won the game. Okay, so you don't need to sacrifice all of the players or anything. You just need to get 8 tokens. And each round somebody stays on a hook, a token goes to the killer. Some effects may block props or pass with the entity token. Entity is removed at the end of each round. Pass the first player marker clockwise to the next survivor in turn order and begin a new round. Okay, so you basically just play... Everybody plays a card, and then you take turns revealing them, and then doing actions on the space you move to until the game ends. So not super complicated, but I'm sure there's a lot of different things you can do with different perks and items and things like that. So here's what you can interact with. There are chests and lockers. They're the blue tokens. So chest, draw the top card of the item deck. If you ever have more than 1 item, discard until you have 1. Okay. Locker. Place your survivor in the locker. While there is a survivor on a locker, all other survivors cannot interact with the locker. The killer and other survivors treat the survivor on a locker as if they were not on the board for the purpose of interactions. Perks, killer powers, as long as they remain in the locker. The killer can only interact with the locker while it's occupied. While in a locker, survivors cannot activate perks. While you would move for any reason, you first take your survivor out of the locker. Off the locker. Okay. It's just gonna protect you a bit, I guess. Crow. The killer gains a blood point. You take a survivor bonus turn. Okay, so it gives a little bonus to the survivors and the killer. Pallet drop. Place the pallet on a path connected to your space. You cannot place the pallet on the path with a breakable wall, another pallet, or any other component. Megan tracks with the face-up pallet in her room and moves it to the path, blocking the killer from coming into the room for that path. Pallets on path. Survivors move freely over pallets. Okay. I'm sure there's something where the killer has to spend a turn breaking it, or an ability to break it, or something like that. Maybe blood points, I don't know. Let's see here. Generator repair. Perform a skill check. On a success, add progress. On a great success, so yeah, I assume this symbol here is a great success. On a great success, add 2 progress instead. On a failure, add no more progress. If a generator would have more than 3 progress, it stays at 3. With 3 progress, that generator is completely completed and moved up to the generator attack. Okay, so you only need 3 successes to complete a generator. Okay. So Jake helps out and interacts with a generator that Dwight had just interacted with. He rolls a 5 and adds 2 progress. The generator is now complete and move to the generator progress. Track. Okay. Exit gates. Once 4 generators are completed, the exit gates are powered up. Survivors can only interact with exit gates once they are powered up. If the exit gates are powered up, perform a skill check. On a success, add 1 progress. So, okay, so it's like another gen. 3 progress opens, and the survivors win the game. Oh, totems and hooks. Place an entity token on the hook. A hook with an anti-token on it cannot be interacted with. The token is removed at the end of this round. Okay, so you can block hooks. Survivor was sacrificed on a sabotaged hook. You gain a a blood point. Then the sacrificed survivor is rescued and they are moved off the hook. You may move along any path after this. The rescued survivor may move along any path. Okay. So Claudette rescues Meg from a hook. She places an anti-token on the hook and get... Okay, so that blocks it, so nobody can get hooked there immediately again. So when you rescue somebody, they can immediately move. To prevent tunneling. Nice. Perform a skill check. On a success, remove the hex token and gain 2 blood points. Okay, so I assume hex totems give special abilities to the killer, like in the game. Heal. Another wounded survivor. Perform a skill check. On a success, the other survivor becomes healthy, removing their wound by removing the ring around it. Breakable walls. Survivors cannot interact with breakable walls under normal circumstances. A survivor attempting to move along a path with a breakable wall remains in place. This causes them to lose the opportunity to interact that turn. So it's big on if you don't move, you don't do anything. Don't interact with anything. So killer interactions. That was what survivors could do with the items. Now this is what killers can do. Occupied locker. So you can... The killer may only interact with an occupied locker. An empty locker doesn't. The survivor on the locker performs a skill check. On a failure, they're picked up, even if they aren't wounded. On a success, the locker is removed. It's kind of a one-use thing. Crow. Remove the crow, gain a blood point. Okay. But Okay, that prevents the players from taking an extra turn. All right. Oh, why did that close? Oh. Hey, Dave, how's it going? Oh, I'm on your video feed. Awesome. How have you been doing? Let's see here. Okay. Good, good. Nice. Yeah, there's a board game coming out or going to Kickstarter soon. Oh, Just Moving. Nice. That's awesome. Or, I mean, somewhat awesome. Moves can be really annoying, but that's cool. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a board game coming out of a video game that I really like. And of course, I obviously like board games. So I'm just going through the rules for it. The Kickstarter starts in a couple days, so I want to get a feel for the game, decide if I want to back it or not, and hopefully give other people an idea if they want to or not. So let's see. The killer, he can remove the crow and gain a blood point. So he prevents the players from getting their bonus turn, and he still gets his blood point, so that's cool. Anyway, hopefully you have a good move, and hope it's not too too much trouble. So let's see here. Generator, you can damage the generator. It removes all progress on it. Hex totem. Venerate. You gain 2 blood points. Nice. I may play some Dead by Daylight a little later, so hopefully you can stop by and watch. Okay, Hex Totem. You can venerate it to gain 2 blood points. You can attack a healthy survivor. They become wounded, putting them on the wound ring. I assume hitting them again will knock him down or something. Pallets on paths. You can, when a killer would move along a path with a pallet, they remove the pallet instead and remain in their space. Okay, so they waste a turn breaking the pallet. And they can't interact. Breakable walls. When a killer moves along a path with a breakable wall, they remove the wall and complete their movement as normal. That path is now accessible by players. Alright. Each killer has a unique power. Once per round, they may use this power instead of interacting. Okay. Trapper can put a bear trap. So the trapper decides to use the bear trap power and now places a bear trap on a path connecting to this room. In future rounds, a survivor that moves over this may become wounded. The Wraith uses his Wailing Bell to power to travel across the board, moving from one room to another room further away. We can kind of teleport, I guess. Kind of makes sense. He moves around without you knowing where he can get to, kind of thing. The Doctor uses his Carter's Spark to affect all survivors in his space. Meg does not have madness, so she can choose to either lose a blood point or gain madness. Dwight already has madness from the previous turn, so he has no blood points to spend, so he becomes wounded. Okay, so you can hurt and wound multiple people or make them get rid of their blood points. Okay, cool. Pick up a wounded survivor. If the survivor is wounded, a killer picks them up. Then the killer attempts to sacrifice them. The killer cannot pick up a survivor that was wounded this round. Okay. Sacrificing. When a killer picks up a survivor, check if there's a hook on their space. Then, if there's an unoccupied hook in their space, the survivor becomes sacrificed immediately. Place the survivor on the hook to show they're sacrificed. If there are no unoccupied hooks, if there's not an unoccupied hook in their space, the killer must carry a survivor to an unoccupied space. Hook. to complete the sacrifice. They will not use a movement card for this. Okay. The killer chooses a number up to 4 and forces the carried survivor to roll that many skill check dice. If any of these dice show great success, survivor escapes and is put down in their space. If none of them do, killer may move up to 1 space per die rolled. Okay, so if you want to move them 3 spaces to the nearest hook, you make them roll 3 dice. So it's the wiggle thing. Okay. The killer may move up to 1 space per die rolled in order to reach a hook and sacrifice the survivor. If they do not reach a hook, the survivor escapes in the space that they stopped in. While carrying a survivor, the killer cannot move over pallets, they cannot move through breakable walls, can't use killer powers, and they can't interact. If the killer ends their movement in a space with an unoccupied hook, place a survivor on the hook to show that they are sacrificed. Once sacrificed, if the survivor has any sacrifice progression on their board, they place it on the sacrifice progress tab. If the survivor has any sacrifice progression on their board, they place it on the sacrifice progress tab. Sacrificed survivors. They do not place a movement card during their turn and cannot use perks. The killer and other survivors treat sacrifice survivors as if they were not on the board, to the purpose of interactions, perks, powers, as long as they're sacrificed. Their turn is skipped. In the turn order, when the survivor is rescued, they will get to move. See Sabotage page 13. So Jake is picked up by the trapper. There is an unoccupied hook in this space, so Jake is sacrificed immediately. Claudette is picked up by the Wraith. There is no unoccupied hook on this space. The Wraith forces Claudette to roll 2 dice. One of the dice shows a 5, and one shows a 0. So they gain a blood point for the 0, and Claudette breaks free from the 5. Okay, Meg is picked up by the Hillbilly. There is a hook in this space, but Dwight is already sacrificed, so it cannot be used. The Hillbilly forces Meg to roll 3 dice. The results are 0, 1, and 2, so the Hillbilly gains a blood point for the 0, then moves 2 spaces to hang Meg. Hook Meg. Alright, skill checks. Only survivors roll dice. When the survivor must perform a skill check, they roll one of the black skill dice. The result showing 1, 2, 3, or 4 is a success. Usually causes the action to work as intended. A result showing 5 is a great success. Usually causes the action to work as intended. For some things, it provides additional benefits. If there's no benefits for great success, it's a regular success. The result showing the skull is a failure. The action usually does nothing and the killer gains a blood point. Rerolls. Some effects will let you reroll. I'm assuming perks and things like that, or items. The results of the rerolls stand. A reroll dice cannot be re-rolled. Danger die. The red danger die is only used when an effect instructs you to. The danger die has 4 failure faces and 2 great success faces. As normal, a failure will grant the killer a blood point. So 4 failures and 2 great. So it's all or nothing. Interesting. I mean, when one player has multiple perks to activate at the same time at the same moment, they may choose to activate any number of those perks in any order. When 2 or more players have perks that activate at the same moment, the survivors resolve in turn order, electing to activate or pass on activating any number of their relevant perks. After that, the killer may resolve their perks if they still wish to. Entity token may be used to block certain props or paths. Usually a killer perk will put this into play, but the entity is always removed during the cleanup. There's only one entity, so if it needs to be placed again, the old token is removed immediately. Perks allow the killer and survivor to change the rules of the game in various ways. Experiment with perks and discover new strategies to outwit the killer and hunt the survivors. Each perk can only be used once per round. If the perk, even a 0 blood point cost perk, has already been activated, it cannot be used again, even if the opportunity comes up. So, only once per round. Makes sense. A connected space is any space that has a path from your current space to the other one, or vice versa. This meant that rooms connected by a one-way path are still connected to each other. Survivor tips have an exit strategy. Okay, so that looks like that's the main rules. The tips. We can go through on their own. FAQs here. What if I enter space and all the props are face up? Proceed to interact as normal but skip the revealing. Can I choose not to move with any movement card? No. If a player reveals a movement card, you must perform the move. If the chosen movement card doesn't work for any reason, then the move fails and you lose the opportunity to interact. When a failure is re-rolled, does the killer still gain a blood point? No, the killer only gains a blood point after rerolls are concluded. Are props revealed during bonus turns, movement outside movement cards, and pickup moves? Yes. Any move that results in the survivor or killer entering a space for any reason reveals one. Okay. Unless they're already revealed. Can a killer force a survivor to roll more dice than they need during a pickup? Can the killer force a survivor to roll more dice than they need during a pickup? Yes, as long as the sacrifice isn't immediate. The killer can force a survivor to roll up to 4 dice, even if they don't need to carry them forward. Which is weird. Even when great success will let them break free, so rolling more dice carries more risk. I don't know why you'd make them roll more unless you're trying to get blood points, but still a chance for them to break out. What does discarding a card during a turn do? Since survivors and killers pick up their cards at the end of a round, any cards discarded will be unavailable for the current round. For survivors and killers, often this means that their movement options when performing a bonus turn are limited. What happens if a survivor is already wounded and would be wounded again? Nothing happens. Some powers and perks simply do not affect survivors that are already wounded. Alright, when a killer picks up a survivor, can they choose to carry a survivor even if there's an unoccupied hook in their space? No. If there's an unoccupied hook in your space, they must use it to instantly sacrifice the survivor. Can the killer damage gates? No, they can't kick gates. Is white considered a movement card? Yes. Even though this card does not move the killer, it's still a movement card for all gameplay purposes. Does that mean they can still interact? Oh no, I don't. I think that means they can't interact, but I'm not quite sure. Killer picks up a survivor with an effect. Do they become wounded as part of the pickup? No. In this rare case, the survivor is still considered healthy, even when sacrificed. When an effect asks me to roll multiple dice, but only keep a certain number of results, does the killer still gain blood points if some of the results are failures, but the kept dice are not? Yes, as long as any rolled dice result in failure, the killer gains blood points, even if that was not the kept result. This, however, does not apply to rerolls. As the killer, what happens if the game instructs me to pick up a survivor that isn't in my space? The survivor is first moved into your space, then you pick them up as normal. What happens if I ever have more blood points than my maximum? Discard until you're at minimum. Maximum. Game mode is Adept. Let's see here. So different ways to play the game. We have game you learn. Survivors and killers have only the perks printed on their board. We have Blood Web. At the start of the game, survivors and killers shuffle their respective perk decks and draw 5 cards from each of them. If any player draws a perk they already have on their board, they must discard it and redraw until they have 8 unique perks, the 3 on the board and the 5 in hand. Then they choose to keep up to 3 perks, covering any starting perks with alternate. At the end, each player will have 3 total perks, which are some combination of printed on the board versus cards. You may choose to have all perk cards and no printed. And unselected perk cards are discarded. So you can't... I'm assuming there's only 1 copy of each kind of thing, except for printed ones. So you can't have everybody running the same perks. Devout, a fully customized game for expert players. Survivors and killers may select up to 3 perks to replace their printed perks, then reveal them simultaneously at the game start. Okay, so you secretly select your perks. Survivor or killer may not have 2 copies of the same perk. Okay, so there might be more than one then. There's always 4 survivors in trial, even with 3 or 4 players. In a 4-player game, one survivor must control 2 survivors. One survivor player must control 2 survivors. In a 3-player game, both players must control 2 survivors. When controlling 2 survivors, the player gets only 1 copy of each movement card. What? When controlling 2 survivors, the player gets only 1 copy of each movement card. They must be careful when moving to ensure that their 2 survivals will not need the same card. Interesting. The player must resolve each survivor's turn in turn order as usual. The first player token is passed among the survivors, not the player, so that each of the 2 survivors will get the first player. And credits. So yeah, that is the game. Interesting. A little some things I'm not quite sure on, but I kind of like hidden movement or hidden selection games. At first I was kind of wondering if it would be more like Spectre Ops, where one player or the 4 players are moving around secretly, and if they get spotted, then they put their character on the board or something like that. But it's kind of interesting because you know around where they are, but not where they're going. And you can kind of mind game with which cards you're going to play to which location you're going to go to. So that's kind of interesting. I know there has been some... I don't know if this is detailed enough that I can actually read some of these perks. Oh. Ace in the hole. No, it's not quite big enough to read. Okay, here we go. The flashlight. Discard this during the killer's turn to prevent the killer in your space from interacting. Okay. So if he moves onto your space, you can get rid of the flashlight to stop him from doing anything there. Hope. Here we go. So, hope. The growing odds of a successful escape fill you with hope and give you wings. When a generator is completed, gain a blood point. And it doesn't cost anything to use, so... Okay. Let's see, are there any other... Most of them are a little too small to read. Here, let's get it back up. Let's see if we can see any other... There we go, there's a killer perk here. Oh, where'd it go? Sorry. Okay. Insidious unlocks your stealth ability. When you would attack a healthy survivor If you have not moved this turn, pick them up instead. Takes 2 blood points, so unlocks your stealth ability. When you would attack a healthy survivor, if you have not moved this turn, pick them up instead. So maybe if you wait where you are, or something else. I don't know if... Some of the things are still a little confusing about, like, if the killer waits, do they still get to interact? Only at the end of your second turn you may... no, where was it? Okay. Reveal your movement card, then move along the matching path to any corresponding space. Flip over face down prop when entering a space if there's any left. Yellow vault paths are only one way. If another effect or rule would make you move, still flip over face down prop. If any other effect or rule would make you move, you still flip over face down prop in the new room. If you reveal any card other than wait and you cannot move, you lose the opportunity. So by that, it sounds like if you place wait, you can still interact. It's only when you place a movement card but can't move that you can't interact. Okay. It'll be interesting to see what all the perks are and kind of how you can use them together. So it's interesting. Maybe I can get close enough for some of these ones. Okay. No. When another survivor in your space, something places. Okay, so Bond, I think when another player in your space rolls a skill check, they get 2 dice and keep the better result. Leader, when another survivor in your space moves something. Yeah, hard to see. Hopefully they put a bit more information about the perks on the Kickstarter page. Comes out, this Kickstarter drops on Tuesday, so I think on Tuesday I'm going to go through that one, or the Kickstarter, kind of like I did here. But I think that's about it. If there's any questions or want me to go over another section again, that's just let me know. But otherwise, I think that's about it. Seems kind of interesting. Take a look at the board here. Maybe not. Is there another page with the board in the middle? Okay, here we go. Okay, so if you look, like there's a space here, so that's a sneak space to go from this location to this one, but there is a breakable door on it. So from here, you can only do green for sprint to get over to here. You can do crouch to sneak over to here, but you can't, or to crouch walk over here, but you can't sneak there unless the killer breaks that. Oh wow, this room here has 3 breakable doors and then 2 other exits. So a sneak, a crouch, a couple sprints, and a vault. So you can only vault this direction. So even if that breakable door was gone, you couldn't vault this way. Okay. So this way you can sneak between these two. You can sprint between these two. You can sprint between these two. Okay, it's kind of interesting. So for like these guys, the killer has to kind of guess where the player is going to go. So the first turn, the player can either crouch to here. They can't vault this way because the vault is going into the room they're in. They can sprint to here or to here. So that would be an interesting one, because if you play sprint, you have two options to go, but the killer always goes later, so they would know which one. You could crouch and go up here. The killer plays a sprint, they'd have to go the other way, so you're trying to get away and keep the killer guessing as to which way you're going to go. Now, if you go this way, there's not a lot of options after that. Whereas this way, you got a few places you can go. You can go up, sneak up here. You can run over here and sneak down there, or even run back. Okay. It's kind of an interesting concept. Anyway, I think that will be about it. Thanks for watching, and like I said, I might get into a little bit of streaming later, some DVD. And eventually I want to start streaming more board games as well, and things that I can kind of play with the community, either co-op games or one-player games where I, take input from people. This one might be interesting to do as a Twitch stream where I play as the killer and then let chat decide what everybody's going to do. Anyway, that I think will be about it. So thanks for watching.